Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 502. My name is Kyle,
My name is James.
and we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. James, welcome.
Thanks, Kyle. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's just you and me this week.
It is, for sure.
I'm a Pawn Tony. Got my dillies on a pepper tank.
Sadate.
We need like a special. I don't know, like something to call these episodes that are Zach free.
Oh man, yeah.
The chill cast,
The chill cast. The opinions that make sense cast.
Ouch. I mean, you've known Zach for a long time. Let's talk about him behind his back, right? Because nobody will ever hear this.
I'd love to.
Has he always been that way? We're like, one week he'll have one opinion and the next week he'll have another, and then he's like, I never said that. And you're like, yeah, you did. You just changed your opinion. You don't remember. It's fine.
Yeah, that has not changed in 30 years.
Sure. I mean, we all do it.
Yeah.
Just
but
yeah.
Some of us do it more than others.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited. I guess we should say Zach's not here, right? I mean, I guess we just said that, but
Yeah, he's taking advantage of Cinereelist Corporation's very liberal PTO policy.
all right. Paid time off.
Yeah.
I wish.
Wait, you're not getting paid for this?
No.
Oh.
I mean, unless you count some of the Patreon money after we pay all the bills just to keep the podcast going. Yeah, I guess technically I am. Although I don't think we've ever spent a dime that wasn't put back on the show from Patreon. Like, it always goes for hosting. It goes for this is not a plug for the Patreon, but the money that we get from Patreon goes to hosting the podcast itself. It goes to paying for Adobe products so that we can edit the podcast with Adobe Audition. We can edit the video with Premiere. We can edit graphics for the website. Like, we use 3 Adobe products just to get the show out, basically. So we use the Patreon money for that. We used to give me money out of the Patreon to pay for gas because I would drive to Zach's
Drive
house.
to Zach's.
Yeah, I did all the driving. So we stopped doing that once we went virtual. And then we've bought gear with it. But pretty much that's what we use Patreon money for.
So next time I go to Florida, I can make it a business trip and Patreon can pay for my flight.
In theory, sure.
All right. I mean, we really are a nonprofit if you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, what I really want to do with the next round of cash pile after months of saving it up is get you a better mic. I know I've said that before, but I want you to have the same mics that Zach and I have, so that we all have buttery voices.
Am I on a bad mic?
You're not on a bad mic. You're just not on these mics.
Do the listeners not know what my voice really sounds like?
I don't know.
Are we?
Your mic sounds good, but if you listen to the podcast, you can tell there's just like a slight tin to it compared to the ones that Zach or I are on. And that's the difference is these are like several $100s more than the one that you're using. So yeah, I'd like to get all 3 of us on the same mic someday. And the Patreon supporters are gonna get us there.
And then
at some
people can
point.
hear the actual butter to my voice.
Yes, for sure. It's if you hate Kyle's voice, just hang in there. Someday it'll be a true representation of what he sounds like.
I hope no one hates my voice. That'd be like, if you're still listening, you hate my voice or anyone's voice in this podcast, then I'm not sure why.
Sure. Could you imagine somebody out there is hate listening because they hate your voice?
They turn on like, oh man, he's talking again.
Hey, you got to get some use out of that 30-second skip button, right? Might as well be that.
Yeah, if people haven't noticed, I only talk in 30-second chunks. So it's
Right.
very easy to just skip and then it's like listening to just Zach and James again.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? And this one and 2 others out of probably 60 that I'm subscribed to are the only podcasts that don't run ads at this point. Like, even the smallest of the small podcasts
Mhm.
these days are running ads, which seems crazy to me because I know what those ads pay out, and if you have a listenership of, like, less than 10,000, what is the point? Like, you're literally gathering pennies at that point. I'd rather just not annoy listeners.
Yeah, like we're not gonna make any money running ads.
No. Even if we did, it would have to be substantial for us, I think, to vote to run ads. Like,
Mhm.
it would have to be decent money, and it's nowhere near decent money where we're at right now. So that was
When
probably
the
more like
ads can pay
Patreon.
for my my summer house, then I'll say go for it.
Yeah, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
Or summer cottage. I can, I can back off a little bit.
Sure.
I just need a couple thousand square feet. We don't need all 10 anymore. If that's all ads can afford, it's fine.
Sure. All right. Episode 502. We're 2 past 500, Kyle. Congratulations.
We are. That's a great math.
I'm gonna keep doing this till we. How long can I keep congratulating us past episode 500?
I
At what
mean,
point does it become gauche?
I think once you get to 999, then at that point you'd be like, we are 499 past 500. And next week,
I can stop saying this.
yep. And then you'll be like, hey, we're 1 past 1,000. This is great.
Sure, why not?
What would we if we get to 1,000 episodes? Are we gonna
Mhm.
do our top 1,000 or like 901 through 1,000?
I mean, this is the big question every 100 episodes. Like,
How
somewhere
deep can we
around,
go?
yeah, after we did the top 200, then we started having the discussion of like, how far do we take this? Like, how when do people just completely stop caring? Because we are so far away from like the top 100 movies that doesn't really matter what our number 401 to 500 uh, are. And yeah, I guess that question remains unanswered because we continue to do it.
We keep pushing through. Well, in 2 years when we get to 600, we'll see if we actually want to do it or not.
Yeah, for sure. Although I enjoyed talking those movies, like our 401 to 500, those, like, there were some movies in there that just don't really come up,
Mhm.
and I like that. Yeah.
I had a ton of fun, and just to talk about movies that we don't normally find time to talk about.
Yeah. All right, this week we're going to talk Denis Villeneuve's Dune, his adaptation of Dune. We're also going to run down the films of Denis Villeneuve. We're going to rank them in order of preference. And we're going to do all that right after a little bit of housekeeping. Don't forget, there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end, and find us there. Watch the podcast while you listen to it. Also, you could support us on the aforementioned Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast, get extra after show audio, amongst other Cinerealist swag. We actually had a listener this past week bump up his level from like $3 a month to $5 a month because he was enjoying the after show content so much.
Thank you, Marco.
So, yes, thank you, Marco. We appreciate it. Also, you could leave us an Apple Podcast review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate those, 5 stars only. Or you could send us a listener email. Send us an email with a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things to heyguys@cinereelists.com. We got a couple of emails this week. Kyle's going to start with the first one.
This is from Logan. He writes, "What up, James, Kyle, and Zach?" I'm just trying to pick up on the tone based on how he wrote this email.
Okay.
Exclamation points there and a lot of T's in that what up. I'm finally getting around to episodes 499 and 500 because I wanted to wait until my top 100 list was done and finalized so I could send it to you. I have seen way less movies than you guys, so there's certain recency bias present in my list, and I also expect it to be somewhat volatile in the future. Here it is. And Logan sent us his top 100 which is awesome. I love seeing listeners' top 100s and see what movies they're interested in. He also added in a couple notes for some of them. So, like, for example, he has, which one jumped out at me? Oh, I lost it. If I can find it, I'll let you know.
Okay.
It was cool, though. Bummer. Anyway, so he threw in a couple notes here and there, which was definitely fun to check. Here we go. Number 96, The Witches. And his note was, Kyle knows what I'm talking about.
What does that even mean?
Well, now, if he's doing a ranking of movies that scarred him as a child, I know what he's talking about. But
The Witches scarred you as a child? Did we talk about this?
I think we did. Didn't we looked up the picture of, what's her name? Not Angelina Jolie. Morticia from Addams Family.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Vaguely. I know what you're talking about. Yes. I'll look it up.
She takes her mask off and she reveals her witch face, and it is grotesque, especially if you're 8 or however old I was that came out.
Angelica Houston?
Angelica Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Angelina Jolie was pretty close. I knew it wasn't her, but it was a name like that.
Sure. Well, The Witches came out in 1990, and Angelina Jolie was not a thing in 1990.
No. And I was 7 in 1990, so perfect.
Yep.
I am going to read off his top 10, though, because I always find that to be the most fascinating.
Okay.
So, number 10, The Shining. That's great. That's probably number 5 or 4, so love to see in this top 10. Number 9, Mother. Another great movie.
Mother exclamation point?
Mother explanation point, yes.
Lowercase m?
He got it all correct, yep.
Nice.
Just by looking at this top 10, I think Logan and I have very similar tastes. His number 8 is Ex Machina.
Nice.
Alex Garland. Yeah. Number 7, how thematic for this week, Enemy by Denis Villeneuve.
That's correct.
Number 6, Jason. Who's Jason? James, I think you'll like this one. 10 Things I Hate About You. Number 5, Planet of the Apes from 1968. Good choice.
I mean, I like that movie, but top 10, I don't know.
What I find interesting is it's one of 2 monkey movies from 1968 on his list of top 10.
What's the other? Well,
we'll get there.
I'll wait
You'll
in
get
suspense.
there, yeah.
No
Number
spoilers.
4, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I'm assuming this is the Gene Wilder version.
Correct.
Number 3, Toy Story, and he says insert any of the 4 Toy Story movies here. They're all that good. So he's doing the whole Zach thing, where he's going to take like all movies from a series and put it in one spot.
No.
Yeah, no.
Toy Story. You can't say Toy Story. Put them all here when there are clear good ones and clear not so great ones. I would say
there is great ones and really good ones.
There's great ones and good ones.
Yeah.
Really good? I don't know.
Have we done a Toy Story ranking? I think Toy Story has been talked a lot about on this podcast.
I don't think so. I think we need to do a whole episode. Next
all right.
week.
Let's just, next, I thought we could pause right now and debate Toy Story. His number 2, the other monkey movie from 1968, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Love to see that number 2. And his number 1, Mulholland Drive, which I'm disappointed by.
No.
Exactly.
I like Mulholland Drive, but you got to be a straight weirdo to make that your favorite film of all time.
Yeah. That's not a cool guy movie, that's for sure.
I don't know. It's a cool guy movie in that, like, the people who really love that movie would really love that it's your number 1 movie.
Mm-hmm.
But man, what a strange movie to make your favorite movie of all time. No offense, but
he did say that 2001 has been his favorite for a long time, for like the last 15 years. But he rewatched Mulholland Drive and realized, wait a minute, this is my number 1. He's still shocked, but he says it feels right. So,
all right.
Logan, thanks for sending your top 100. If anyone wants to send in their top 100, top 10, top 50, top 20, whatever you rank your movies, we'd love to hear it.
Definitely. We got another email here. This one is from Evelyn. Evelyn writes, "Hey, cool cats. My name is Evelyn. I'm the wife of Josh in the land of kangaroos, Australia. So Josh, frequent listener
Mm-hmm.
of the show, I believe also a Patreon supporter. At one
Yep.
point, Josh was on this podcast when we did the listener call-in special, which we really should do again.
I was actually thinking about that this week. It might be time to pull one out in the next couple months.
Yeah, the last time we did it was August of last year. So we've actually passed a year since we did that. And we said a year ago that we would do it again. So it's probably pretty close to time for us to do it again.
Yeah.
The hard part is we got feedback from some of the listeners that they want us to do it at a time when Europeans can jump on. And that's tough for us to do because you and Zach record while kids are sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to.
If we did it like on a weekend during the day, we could pull it off.
You could find an hour somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An hour. Let's be real.
Sure. An hour or two. How's that?
An hour or so, yeah.
Sure. Okay. So that's who Josh is. Evelyn continues. I just want to personally thank you for making my husband smile, laugh, and learn more about one of his passions, movies. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 a few years ago, which is a lot of work on both sides. I mean, a lot. And it is mentally exhausting for both parties. Your podcast has literally been a breath of fresh air for him, his own time that he deserves. Every time he listens to you cool cats, he cannot wait to tell me and what movies he will be watching. As a wife, it makes me so happy to see my husband have a passion/hobby. I'm glad he has his escape, healthy time that's just for him. I actually cannot thank you enough. I hope you guys are doing well and have a blessed week, Evelyn. That's awesome.
That's great. That's a really special email. Thank you, Evelyn.
I was kind of not necessarily speechless because I read this in silence alone,
Mm-hmm.
but a little blown away by this
Mm-hmm.
email because we just jump online and be goofy for an hour plus and
Yeah.
talk about something that's pretty inconsequential in the bigger picture of life and things like that. And to get an email like that, just not that I ever thought we were, healing the world or anything. But it's awesome. I'm glad we can be that comfort for at least Evelyn. I don't know if Josh sees us that way. But and I don't care if he does or doesn't, but it's great that well, we appreciate you, Evelyn, and we appreciate Josh for sure. There was a time in my life 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, when my brother-in-law had leukemia. He was going through cancer. He was going to pass away. Like the writing was on the wall. And one of the best comforts I had was listening to podcasts. And it wasn't necessarily like podcasts about the disease. In fact, that's the last thing I should have been listening to at the time. It was just being able to listen to people talk about something that wasn't the thing that was dominating my brain. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
when you have somebody with health issues that's close to you or something else going on in your life that's just dominating your brain and not in a good way, you you feel guilty about seeking out the distractions from it, right? But when you can find one that can take you away for a little while, it's worth every penny. No matter how low budget it is or high budget it is, it's worth every penny for sure. And people definitely did that for me through various forms of entertainment, including podcasts. And I'm glad that we can do that for Evelyn and Josh as well.
Yeah, Evelyn, thank you so much for writing in. And Josh, we appreciate you being a listener, and it was great getting to talk to you. Yeah, for that call-in show, and hopefully we can talk again soon when we do our next one.
Definitely. Evelyn gave a PS on this email. She wrote, PS, shout out to Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. Best movie ever made. I don't know about that. I have seen that movie and I enjoyed it. And I watched it like not that long ago, like within the last couple of years. Have you ever seen Romy and Michelle's high school High School Reunion?
Yeah, a long time ago. That was another movie that was on Comedy Central all the time
Really?
back in like I don't know what late 90s. When did that come out? Was that Lisa Kudrow was still doing Friends when that came out, right? Or was that post Friends?
It was 1997, so still
Oh yeah,
Friends.
still Friends. Okay, yeah. So I remember
Yeah.
that movie playing on cable a lot.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I've seen it from beginning to end in one sitting, but I've definitely
Mhm.
seen that movie in its entirety, possibly in chunks.
Hmm.
And Evelyn, I just want to know: did you invent Post-its?
I don't understand that joke.
That
I
it's
laughed
it's
at
a
it, but I don't understand it.
it's a Romeo and Michelle joke.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the plot synopsis now.
Okay.
I get it now. This is so I don't have the date marked that I watched this, but I do have what I rated it. 1.5 stars.
Oh.
Which is not high for me, I would
Mhm.
say. The guy who directed it directed Heartbreakers though, and that is a movie I enjoy. Do you remember
I've never heard of
Heartbreakers?
Heartbreakers.
He's only directed 2 movies, Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion and Heartbreakers. And Heartbreakers stars Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt, and they're like con women who marry rich men and then divorce them for their money. And Sigourney Weaver is like the mother, and Jennifer Love Hewitt's the daughter. And depending on what type of woman the man wants, like if it's a young guy who wants a cougar, like Sigourney Weaver takes the guy. If it's an old guy who wants a young girl, Jennifer Love Hewitt takes the guy. And it's interesting. I don't know. It's not like a classic or anything, but
Sounds thrilling. You're really selling at this movie.
sure. Well, it's a fun early 2000s movie, and Gene Hackman plays like one of the guys that they infiltrate, like the
Oh,
main guy
okay.
that they infiltrate over the course of the movie. So, have you ever seen Dirty Rotten Scoundrels or
There was a remake recently with Anne Hathaway.
yeah, it was awful. Don't bother with that one.
Okay.
I mean, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels isn't exactly a good movie either, but Heartbreakers was fun. That's my point. Romeo and Michelle, don't remember much about it.
Well, you remember enough to give it 1.5, though.
Well, I remembered it when I rated it, which was who knows when. All right, thank you for the email, Evelyn. We appreciate it. Don't forget, you can also send us an email, heyguys@cinereelists.com. Let's get into our movie for this week. It's a movie that's in theaters now and available for streaming on HBO Max. It's an adaptation of the classic sci-fi novel series Dune. We're going to get into it right after this clip. That was Dune, a 2021 American epic science fiction film directed by Denis Villeneuve, based on the novel series by Frank Herbert. The movie stars Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Zendaya, Chang Chen, Jason Momoa, and another person that I think might be spoiler, so I'm going to leave him out. I don't know. Maybe. You know the guy that kind of shows up near the end?
Oh no, he shows up in the movie
Sure.
other times.
Yeah. But I didn't know he was in the movie. Did you?
Okay. I mean, I didn't know he was in the movie, but his appearance was not a spoiler to me.
I'm leaving him out.
Okay, I actually wanted to talk about him because I thought there's something interesting, but we can leave it
All
out.
right. We can
No,
dance
we'll-
around it, right?
Sure, we'll dance around it.
Okay.
I think this is all right. This is the guy who shares the same initials as you, correct?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
I never
All right.
thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what his middle name is, but I'm assuming
Well,
it
all right. So we're thinking about the same guy then.
for sure. Dune, the official plot synopsis is a feature adaptation of Frank Herbert's science fiction novel about the son of a noble family entrusted with the protection of the most valuable asset and most vital element in the galaxy. That is very spoiler free for sure. I mean,
Very.
you wouldn't even know if they left the word science fiction out, you wouldn't even know this takes place like not in our time, basically.
20,000 ish years in the future.
Right. So Dune, this is like the plot synopsis said, a classic sci-fi novel. It has been it's been adapted several times, not necessarily for film, but in different various ways.
Mhm.
It has been adapted for film once before by David Lynch in 1984, I believe.
Yep.
And it was pretty much a failure in all aspects, I would say, financially and artistically. And it's a movie David Lynch even he doesn't what's the word? He doesn't
He's distanced himself from it.
right. He's not saying like I want nothing to do with it, but he's also like it's a thing I did. I didn't like how it turned out, so I don't want to talk about it type of thing.
Yeah, he's not proud, or he's not like, "Hey, I did my best and this is what I got." He's more of like, "Yeah, I made it, and what else?" Next question.
Right. Exactly. And so it's kind of one of these properties that is considered unfilmable in
Mhm.
Hollywood circles. And so was a sequel to Blade Runner. And of course, Denis Villeneuve, his last film before the recent Dune was Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to Blade Runner, which didn't make a whole lot of money at the box office, but was critically acclaimed and
Mhm.
did okay at the box
Yeah.
office. And so that was surprising to people that somebody could make a Blade Runner sequel that kind of stands on its own and also doesn't, not necessarily damage, but doesn't feel like it's riding on the coattails of the original. And so, of course, the guy who did that with Blade Runner decided to take a stab at Dune. And he did. The movie's finally out. I believe it was supposed to come out last time this year. They just kept
Yes, about October of last year.
Yeah, they just kept kicking the can down the street until COVID eased up a little bit, and now it's out there for your viewing pleasure. And we viewed it. The question is, did it give us pleasure? That sounded weird. I was trying to
Okay.
figure out how to transition that statement without sounding creepy. I'm not sure I got there.
I would say you failed.
Okay, fine, fine. Used to failing, so it's all good. What did you think of Dune, Kyle?
So I want to give you a little background on my Dune knowledge, and I,
Okay,
I would love to hear what your experience is too when you give your quick
absolutely.
review. Um, I am I read Dune in, I don't know, either middle school or high school. So I read the book.
The first book.
There's a series of books, Children of
Mhm,
Dune, and it goes on for a while, and it gets very strange. But I read the first book, so I was definitely familiar with the story. I've seen the David Lynch adaptation of it. Saw it
mhm,
a couple years ago, and then also in the early 2000s, Sci-Fi did a miniseries adaptation of Dune, also, which I think was like the definitive version to watch. It was maybe the only successful version of the Dune story up until this point.
hmm,
So I definitely have some background in Dune. So plot wise, I knew a lot of what to expect going into this. I was looking more for what is Denis Villeneuve going to do visually? How is he going to tell this story? Because this is the story itself is not dense. Like, it's kind of your basic hero's quest that we're all familiar with, Star Wars, and grab any movie and you could kind
mhm,
of follow that hero's quest. But the world itself is quite dense, and there's tons of proper nouns that get thrown in there, be it like Arachnus or Atreides or the Harkonnens or whatever the Messiah. I can't even think what the Messiah name is for the character. There's a lot to take in, and I remember like the David Lynch Dune version gave you like a 3 minute prologue to try and explain everything and just like dumped it on you, and it
mhm,
was a lot to take in, and I think that's what led partially to the failure of that movie. And I was kind of curious to see how is Denis Villeneuve gonna handle bringing new people into this dense sci-fi world. And I would say overall, I thought he was pretty successful.
Mhm.
Where even though I had sort of base knowledge of what was going on, I still felt like it wasn't a big info dump about all the different houses and the politics. Like he was able to kind of mix in the politics and the plot and sort of trickle along where you knew what was going on without dumping too much on you. Visually, blown away. Like Denis Villeneuve, he is a visual artist. He has mastery of the camera, right? He knows
Mhm.
what he wants and he can get it on screen, and that's pretty incredible that he can bring this vision to life. I thought this movie looked great. I loved his use of space. Like every room was just immense and empty. And I thought that was a really cool kind of way of showing like the vastness of space and everything is just a large empty room, but it was an interesting large empty room to stare at, or at some point a large empty sand dune. Um, where the movie kind of lost me was this is part one of the Dune story, right?
Mhm.
David Lynch tried to adapt the whole thing into a 2-hour movie, which is a lot. Denis Villeneuve said, "I'm going to make part one, and if it's successful, if you guys show up to the theater and pay money, because he was really pissed about the HBO Max thing,
Mhm.
um, we'll make number two." And I just heard that they did announce part two, so apparently it's made enough money, you know, in post COVID times. I think it's made 60 million so far. Does that sound
Okay.
right? Which is not a lot pre-COVID, but post-COVID,
Not
not
bad.
too shabby, especially for a movie that was day and dates on HBO Max.
Better than Venom 2.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so I think where the movie lost me is it just kind of ends because
Mhm.
it's a two-parter. There there is I guess there's kind of a climax to the movie. It does build to something, but then there's a good 30 minutes of walking after that something happens. And I guess I found myself getting a little impatient, like knowing that this is going to be a part 2. I was more waiting like, okay, when are we just going to stop this movie and get ready for number 2? And that's
Mhm.
kind of what it felt like it happened. Like it just sort of kept kind of going on and on and on towards the end, and eventually it stopped. But I didn't know, like, are we going to stop with Zendaya? Are we going to stop with arriving somewhere? And it just sort of it felt long in that final 30 minutes to me. And maybe that's because the big climax happens 3/4 of the movie instead of 9/10 through the movie.
Yeah, I mean, the action climax certainly happened 3/4 of the way
Yes.
through the movie, but the character development climax had not quite gotten there. It hadn't kept pace with the action climax, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that's what they paid off in the last half hour. But it does feel like a smaller thing because the scale is smaller than what they just put us through.
Yes.
So I agree with that, and I think if this had been marketed as like a much bigger story, then um, I think it might have worked better.
Mhm.
The fact that there's, you know, it whimpers a little bit at the end compared
It
to
does,
where
yeah.
it took you earlier. So it, but I mean, some of the Lord of the Rings movies do that too. Like towards the end of them, there's like a little epilogue, and you knew there was another one coming, so it was fine. And
Mhm.
I don't feel like they really made that well enough known. Now, I knew because I like listened to a couple interviews with him where he's talking about how, this was part one and he's hoping to get part two. And it's, he intentionally made it so that there wasn't too much information in the first one and blah, blah, blah. But they didn't call it Dune Part One in the marketing. That's for sure.
The movie
And
they did, right?
no, I mean,
I
on screen they
On
do,
screen they did, yes, that's what I'm
but
saying, like, in the theater.
on the posters, it doesn't say Dune Part 1, it says
True.
Dune.
Yep.
And so that's fine if you're making Dune, which may or may not have a sequel, but he did not make a movie that may or may not have a sequel. He had a movie that was half made
Mhm.
that potentially could be told the second half. But if he never got to make the second half, this movie's still half made.
Yeah, so this is not like Lord of the Rings where he signed on to a 2-picture deal and they made him back to back. Like he was given, you can make part 1, and if it does well, we'll let you make part 2. So he was definitely taking a gamble.
Right, but normally when you take that gamble, you try to make a part 1 that has some kind of resolution at the end, so that if part 2 never comes, you're not literally making something that's half finished.
Half a movie, yeah.
Right. And Denis Villeneuve definitely does not do that. He's just like, yep, part 1, this is the end of it. Hopefully we'll get part 2.
Yeah, it
Because-
really felt like the end of the episode.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah, I enjoyed what was there. If you want some background on my Dune knowledge, I was vaguely aware of Dune as a pop culture thing, basically, but I had not directly ingested any of it until I watched David Lynch's Dune. And as I watched David Lynch's Dune, I was thinking, this is what people are going on about? This is awful. I mean, it was like it was the worst version of a Star Trek episode I've ever seen. It was like all these different places and people that other people who you didn't know were talking about, right? They're just talking about all these people that aren't on screen currently. You have no context for who they are or why they matter. And the characters who are saying their names are not given enough, I don't know, dialogue or intention of their acting in the moment for you to know what was important and what wasn't. And so it all just becomes this mush of stuff that doesn't matter to you, names and places that don't matter to you. And even the broader concepts of like spice and things like that in the David Lynch version are just lost amongst just sci-fi gobbledygook and awful performances and bad costumes and just a lot of talking with not much action.
Dune 84 looks cheap.
It absolutely does. I mean, when you compare Return of the Jedi, which came out the year before, and it's not like Return of the Jedi is like crazy high production value. They use the woods and they you know what I mean? They figured it out how to make it look good on camera, even though they're not using crazy costumes. I mean, that's kind of the genius of stormtroopers is they look cool, even though it's just a bunch of guys in plastic domes and stuff.
Yeah. There's like 8 stormtrooper costumes that keep rotating through.
Whereas the David Lynch costumes in his version of Dune are questionable, I would say.
You do get Sting in a glittery Speedo.
I mean, there is some kitsch value
Yeah.
to 1984 Dune, but not enough for me, for sure. I mean, I found it to be a brutal watch. And when I finished the movie, I was like, I thank God I never have to watch that again because it was awful. And so that's my background. Literally just watching David Lynch's version and
All right.
that kind of tainting the idea of watching anything Dune related for me again. Then Denis Villeneuve gets announced and I'm interested, of course, because it's the Blade Runner guy and maybe he can turn me around on what Dune has to offer. And I would say the end result is I'm intrigued. I don't really know where this is going to go. I'm guessing it's going to go in a very sci-fi cliche way. I don't know the part 2 of this story, but knowing that it's a classic sci-fi novel, I'm willing to bet that people have cribbed from it for decades, and we've probably seen what part 2 has to offer as far as like basic plot, hero's journey type stuff, like you were mentioning, and that'll be fine because with Denis Villeneuve attached, the visuals are the attraction for me. In movies that I'm sure we'll discuss when we run down his filmography, the story can also be an attraction, but Dune has proved to me that it doesn't have to be. Because really, in part 1, it's basically a Game of Thrones episode set to a sci-fi visual.
Oh, Oscar Isaac's character is I feel like Ned Stark is based on that character.
Yeah. I mean,
someone who's too good for the world.
Game of Thrones had far more time to do this, but in the early seasons, they did a really good job of bringing you up to speed with who is who,
Mhm.
why it matters, and why it matters to the characters on screen. They had a ton of time to do it, and they did a really good job with it. I think Denis Villeneuve, considering just the jumbled mess that David Lynch's version was, trying to get you up to speed on what was going on in the universe, this movie, while it has a lot more time to do it, does it very well.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like the information that we're given are given in a way that it makes sense. It's not just a big backstory dump. And the information that doesn't matter is left out. And in between, you get awesome shots of sand and huge, giant looking sets, which are probably 95% digital.
But they look so good that you can't see the seams.
I mean, this movie uh, is like the end all be all of sand movies, right? Nobody would ever need to do it better than this, I would
I don't. I
say.
mean, Woman in the Dunes. We're talking sand movies, but that's real
Is
sand.
okay. I'm talking about like digital sand. I mean, I'm not saying I was convinced they did this practically, but uh, only because I know you couldn't do it practically. Like if I had no cognitive ability to determine what could be done and couldn't practically, I could see myself believing they actually did some of these things in real life, when in reality, I bet 99% of it is pure digital.
Yeah, I don't think they built a 500-foot sandworm and pulled it underneath the dunes.
No. I mean, I don't even think they put sand in miniature and like dropped the bottom out so that it would suck down. You know what I mean? And like,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't even think they filmed sand for the most part. I mean, some of the sweeping, drone shots, I'm sure they did, but some of it, I bet, is 100% digital on screen,
Mhm.
and it super impressive in that way, and yeah, just visually amazing to look at. It is a little one note because the environments, whether they're inside or whether they're out in the desert, are still just kind of like very brutalist designs. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's the Dune design. It makes sense. I'm not expecting like a super colorful character to pop out of nowhere or anything like that, because it is like a desert environment. But it is 2.5 hours of sand and giant dark rooms.
I so I did appreciate when we spent time on, I don't know, House Atreides' home planet, which is
Mhm.
much more lush because
Mhm.
that broke it up. And then also when we got to see the Harkonnens in there, it was also brutalist sculpture, but at least it was like gray and inky black, and it was different than yellow.
Mhm.
So I was able to get a little bit of visual change up when we left
Sure.
Arrakis.
Um, yeah, I I enjoyed the presentation
Hmm.
probably the most, and the acting. They got a great cast, and the acting was good enough to keep me moving. You know what I mean? The plot was good enough to keep me
Hmm.
moving. I don't think either of those are particularly stellar, but the visuals are. And so the others just had to not get in the visuals way, and I think it did a good job of that. How did you feel about Timothy Chalamet kind of as the lead of this?
So I am not a Timothy Chalamet fan.
Mhm.
I think he's kind of a one note actor,
Mhm.
and I don't get the appeal.
Like as a heartthrob? Is that what you mean? Or
Well,
as
I
an
mean,
actor?
like I get the appeal as like he does have these boyish looks. As a
Mhm.
heartthrob, I get it, but as an actor, I've never been impressed by what he's done. I think he's always been put with people who are better than him, and maybe their good acting
Mhm.
elevates his so-so acting.
Sure.
I did find him fitting for this role though, where his character Paul is supposed to, I think he's supposed to be like 15 years old,
Mhm.
and sort of he's kind of waking up to the world where he's been sort of in under protection of his father within that house his whole life, and now he's finally on a new planet and he's seeing danger, and that the world can be a more violent place than kind of what he grew up in, and he's sort of as well as having these weird dreams that appear a lot in the movie. So I thought Chalamet did a good job of like showing that innocence and then realizing the world is a bigger place than what it is.
Hmm.
He did, like I said, he did not get in the way of the story. Where I thought, like Rebecca Ferguson or Oscar Isaac or Stellan Skarsgård elevated the story just by their presence.
Yeah, I absolutely did not realize that was Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron,
as the bear.
because
Oh,
he
and
is unrecognizable with that suit on. And
yeah, he's definitely wearing I don't call it, what's the better term? A suit to give him more
a
bulk and
bodysuit.
girth. A bodysuit, thank you.
Sure,
Yes.
I know what you were trying not to say.
Well, I was trying to say. I was trying to be, yeah.
You remember, before we move on from Timothy Chalamet, remember like probably a bunch of episodes ago, we were trying to figure out who. Oh, it was when we were talking about the Inside guy, the musical comedian, Bo
Oh,
Burnham.
Bo Burnham. Yeah.
We were trying to determine who's the most successful person who took a YouTube career and then transitioned to like a bigger star, like a bigger traditional media star type of thing.
Is Chalamet a YouTube star?
Timothy Chalamet is a YouTuber, was a
Yeah.
YouTuber. Isn't that crazy?
That just lowers his stock, in my opinion. But
Here's the crazy thing.
yeah.
He definitely wasn't a YouTube star, but he had a YouTube channel when he was
Mhm.
like 14 years old, and he would custom paint Xbox controllers.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so
Huh.
there's a channel out there with 3 videos on it where he doesn't show his face. He's just showing the Xbox controllers, and it turns out it's his childhood YouTube channel where he's uh, getting paid
Mhm.
by his friends to customize their Xbox controllers, and then he would make videos about the paint jobs he put on the Xbox controllers.
Wow.
It's
Huh.
crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Rebecca Ferguson, one of your favorites, right?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I'd say of modern actors. Yeah.
Well, she was in the Mission Impossible movies, right?
And she
And then
does great in those movies. Yeah.
she is good in those movies. I agree. She's good in this as well.
Mhm.
Oscar Isaac is awesome in this.
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever seen him kind of playing a good guy.
Right. Yeah, he usually is playing like maybe they're good, but there's also something a little dark about them.
Yeah. Whereas
Or
this, he was like chivalrous and
Mhm.
like given the situation, a good dad, right? A good
Yeah.
father. I mean, maybe his one fault was not marrying Lady Jessica, the Rebecca Ferguson character. But I don't know, in this society, maybe that's acceptable.
Yeah, you have your harem, your concubines.
Sure. I was also surprised to see Josh Brolin in this movie. Is that the one that you said had similar initials to me? Because that's not what I was thinking.
No, the other one.
Okay, the other one.
The
Like Josh,
Fremen.
me and Josh Brolin, we share initials as well.
You'd share initials as well. You're correct. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, did not know he was in the movie, and all of a sudden he pops up pretty early, and I was just like, why is he in this movie? And then I was like, oh yeah, Sicario.
Yeah. Yeah, how many Villeneuve alum were in this movie? Big Batista,
Batista,
Brolin.
and that's it.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
Really?
I don't think
Huh,
anybody
okay.
else.
I thought there'd be more.
It's 2. It's not nothing, but
It's
I
not
don't.
nothing, but
It's not like the whole thing was alumni or anything,
no, but this isn't like a Wes Anderson movie where he uses the same cast every every time.
for sure. I really
Hmm.
enjoyed Dave
Know who else?
Bautista.
Know who else is alum?
Who?
The Harkness, not Batista, not Stellan Skarsgård, the third guy from the Harkness. He's kind of tall and got long robes. He's like their seeker, their sayer, or something like that.
Hmm.
He's in Prisoners.
I don't
He's
remember
also
him.
in Dark Knight. He's like the guy who tries to assassinate Commissioner Gordon.
I don't
I
remember who you're
I
talking
can't
about.
think of his name. He has a very recognizable face.
He's an
And
Atreides guy.
No. He's a Harkonnens guy.
He's a Harkonnen. David
Yes, David something.
Malkian.
That's the one. Yes. Yeah, he's
I've
in
never
Prisoners.
said that name out loud.
He was on I think he was on I Was There Too, the Matt Groening podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt Groening said, like, so you kind of tend to play bad guys? And then David's like, yeah, look at my face. Is this the face of a hero?
Sure.
So he's like, I know what I look like. I know what roles I can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you're saying Dave Bautista?
Dave Bautista was great. I mean, I liked all the House Harkonnen guys. I thought they were interesting and scary looking, right?
Yeah.
Like they are the muscle guys who are just gonna beat you down. And visually that came across for sure. In how they made up Stellan Skarsgård, how they made him huge, basically. He's basically a giant amongst big men. And then having Dave Bautista kind of be his right-hand man. And I mean, Dave Bautista doesn't have a whole lot to do in this movie. I'm guessing in part 2.
I think he has more, yeah.
Yeah, he might have more to do. I mean, maybe probably the biggest action star of Dune would have been Jason Momoa, because he actually has something to do as far as action goes. And he was good too. Is he in the David Lynch version? Is that character in the David Lynch version?
Yeah, Duncan Hunter. Yes.
Duncan Idaho.
Duncan Idaho. Thank you. I realized I was saying Harkonnens, not Harkin. I don't.
Sure.
For the person who said I've read and seen everything, you think I get these names better?
That's fine. Duncan Idaho, though, is a name I will never forget. I mean, that is, if that was in the David Lynch movie, he really screwed up me not remembering that name, because I don't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a David Lynch.
Yeah.
I thought Stellan Skarsgård was channeling Marlon Brando from Apocalypse Now at one point.
Yeah.
I think when he's like in that bath and like he's kind of rubbing his bald head and leaning in towards the camera. I'm like, this is very Colonel Kurtz right here.
Yeah, I love the visual of like that oil bath where with the different types of oil that like don't fully mix and stuff like that. It was pretty cool, man. Pretty cool.
And those Dragonfly helicopters, those are pretty cool too.
The Dragonfly helicopters, when they first came on screen, I was like, seriously, we're gonna do this? You couldn't have like redesigned this to like not look like it looks. And then as the movie went on, I was like, actually, I like these a lot.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of cool looking, even if they are kind of stupid on its surface. They're cool looking on screen. And some of the, I mean, it's basically like a helicopter, but you know, when helicopters dive, they just kind of move down. They don't like go straight down. I guess they could go straight down, but typically in movies, when you have helicopter battles, they can't just like put their blades backwards.
They're not going nose first towards something.
Yeah. I mean, you could. I've seen stunt helicopters that can do that. But with these bug ships, I don't know what you'd call them, they can actually like push the blades back and do a like legit dive. And it looked cool occasionally. And they won me over with those for sure, even though in the beginning I was like, this is kind of stupid, but I got over it.
Yeah,
I was into it by the end.
I thought they're cool. I was maybe we'll get more of it. I know we'll get more of it next movie. So like the sandworms, that's kind of like the big original idea.
It's the big attraction
from this. Right. Yeah. I mean, we even saw that in Empire Strikes Back. It has not a sandworm, but it's a sandworm. So,
yeah. I mean, there's two things in Empire that kind of resemble sandworms.
What's the other one?
The worm on the planet where they take a rest on the planet. They accidentally go in the mouth of something.
Yep.
The Minox attack them. Not a direct sandworm, but when the sandworm's out of the sand, it kind of looks like that worm that comes out of the planet that they escape out of.
Yeah, very similar. Yep.
And then also you've got the what's the name of that thing? The thing that eats Boba Fett.
Oh, the Sarlacc pit.
The Sarlacc pit.
Yes.
The other visual that's very Dune worm like. Yeah.
So it was cool. We had the scene of the sandworm eating from below,
Mhm.
which is really neat. And then kind of our first look at the sandworm was a night shot.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
a little disappointed. I was like, oh, I was kind of hoping for like, I don't know. I was hoping for of a reveal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple times in the movie where they do something that I was getting really excited about them doing, and then
Mhm.
they cut it short.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess they're saving that for part 2, but you really teased us here.
So the sandworms will play a bigger role in
Mhm.
part 2. So I think if you're looking for more sandworm, you just have to wait.
Yeah. I mean, there's this shot of a character who they position to be about to, like, jump on the back of a sandworm, and then
Yeah.
they don't do that, and it's like, "Oh, come on, I just wanna see that happen," and I don't even know that that happens in these stories. It's just they played up so well that that was about to happen that, and then later, you know, things happen, but not in this movie, and
Nope.
so, yeah, I didn't really like that about the movie, to be honest. I understand why it's like that, and if part 2 was in the plan from the get-go, I would be really not upset, but disappointed if they did not make a part 2 and this was all we got. Because
Yeah.
there's multiple things that Warner Brothers would have been leaving people hanging on that this movie teased but did not deliver on. And on some level, their inability to just commit to this property kind of annoying.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad we're getting a part 2.
Mhm.
But even when I went to go see it, did you see it in the theater or on HBO Max?
I saw it in a theater in 3D.
Oh, in 3D.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that's an option anymore.
There were only 2 showings in
Okay.
3D, and they happened to line up with times I could go, and I was like, "Absolutely. I haven't seen a 3D movie in forever, and this feels like one that might be decent." So,
Was it worth it? Was it a good 3D?
I mean, I hesitate to say the 3D made it better, but the fact that I hadn't been to a 3D movie in so long
Mhm.
kinda helped because wasn't I hadn't seen the effect in years. And so it's not brand new, certainly, but newish. And this movie has a lot of really long shots. Like even the shots that are indoors are across vast spaces. And so there
Yes.
was a lot of opportunity for depth. And I think it was a good movie for the effect. Again, I don't think 3D makes movies better, but the visuals, which were the high priority for me, were interestingly displayed in
Mhm.
3D for sure. They didn't do nothing with it, which was nice.
3D made Avatar better.
Yeah. You think Avatar without the 3D is not as good a movie.
Oh, so I saw Avatar in 3D
Mhm.
and I was like, "This is amazing." And then it came out on a rental Blu-ray. I was like, Megan, you have to see Avatar. We have to watch this movie. Like, you'll be blown away." And we watched it, and she was like, "So is Pocahontas?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is way less satisfying on my
Huh.
TV." So, yeah, I think Avatar was a movie that was, it's a what, 10-year-old, 12-year-old movie now
Right. It was designed to be seen on a big screen and
with
also in 3D.
yes, yeah, like Cameron knew, "Oh, this plot's nothing new, so how can I make a draw to this movie?"
Mhm.
And big screen 3D was it. So, yes, based on that experience, I can say 3D definitely made Avatar a better movie.
Interesting. See, I'm of the belief that 3D can't make a movie better, but it can make it more interesting in the moment, if that makes sense.
But isn't that experience a better experience? Like when you rate a movie, you're rating it on the overall experience.
Yes, but there are movies where you can give or take the 3D and you'll feel exactly the same about it.
Mhm.
Um, And I don't think good 3D can save a bad movie in the long run. Plus,
Oh, no, not in the long run. No.
Right. In 2009, 3D was new
Yeah.
for our generation. You know what I mean? For this movie going generation, I would say. And so it was still the spectacle of 3D,
Mhm.
but I don't think it made the movie better. It just the theater experience was better. The movie wasn't any better.
No, right. The experience was better. And I was hoping, hey, Megan, I had this great experience in the theater. I hope you can have the same one at home. And when
Mhm.
you took away all the trappings that made the theater experience better and you're left with just the Avatar movie, you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is not a great
Right.
movie. So I guess I can agree with you that 3D doesn't make a movie better in the long run because, right, people are experiencing these movies on their TVs a decade, 2 decades later, and they're judging it based on that, not based on seeing it in the theater.
And they can trick you into thinking a movie is good because of the theater experience,
Mhm.
but it's not actually making it better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like bass shakers in your lay down seats. Better theater experience, not actually doing anything for the movies as the movie exists.
Just making me have to go pee sooner.
All right. So, anything else? What, Zendaya's in the movie? Kind of. She's there.
Yeah.
She's throughout the movie.
She's throughout the movie. I wasn't sure if we were actually gonna see her or
Mhm.
not. And so that was interesting.
Yeah. Let's talk about the final scene without spoilers.
Okay.
Did you like it? Was it an adequate setup for a part 2? You've already kind of given your opinion on how the movie kind of just ends because it's like
Mhm.
a second climax of sorts, second less spectacular climax. But as a part 1, how did you feel about it?
I think as a part 1 ending, it was fine. Like, it lets you know that there is more story to tell, that our character, I mean, Paul's our main character. He's going somewhere,
Mhm.
and here's something to look forward to for part 2 if it gets made. Because at the time, did not know if I was going to see a part 2
Yeah.
when that movie ended. So
Yeah.
I think the ending is fine in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, really, all the trappings, all the story trappings of part 1 are really just in service of you following this, young Paul character and
Mhm.
seeing his progression from like um, young son who wants something bigger in life or something like that. That's not necessarily what the movie's about, but something like that. Who kind of lives under the shadow of the king,
Mhm.
although they don't call him a king. It's the Duke Oscar, played by Oscar Isaac, and over the course of the movie, you see him come into his own, and then in that final scene, they set you up for like he's learned things, and in the next one, we're gonna pay off all those things that he's learned.
If you think of the hero quest as like a clock,
Mhm.
he's at like 7, 8 o'clock when the movie ends.
Right? Yeah.
Like he's had his darkness, and now he's starting to come out the light a little bit.
Right. It kind of makes me wonder. Like, I've seen the David Lynch movie, which supposedly tells the story of Dune, but I don't remember anything that happens. Like, as far as like what could possibly be in part 2 that
So
wasn't in part 1.
yeah, you do not remember David Lynch Dune at all. I want to say that David Lynch Dune, 2/3 of David Lynch Dune covers what we saw in part 1.
Okay.
So like 2/3 is part 1, 1/3 is part 2.
And I know this was a long time ago, but is that roughly the same ratio for what's in the book?
I do not remember. I
Okay.
could completely honest.
Fair enough. It was
So yeah,
only
that was
20 years ago, so
20 or so. Yeah, at least 25.
sure. Yeah, I'm curious to know if like the next one's gonna be shorter, if it's more like 2 hours instead of 2.5,
Mhm.
and if it's gonna be like an hour of just all out war type of stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, there's gonna be. I'm looking forward to some battles, but also some smaller hand-to-hand battles too, kind of like what we saw at the end of part 1.
Mhm.
Right, because they have to kind of set up that Timothy Chalamet can be a fighter. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not.
I mean, I think they kind of set it up in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely where the movie, you see a progress of him not being able to spar with somebody at the beginning,
hmm
and he gets better over the course
Yeah.
of the movie. When challenged. Anything else with Dune?
So Zach is not here, but I would like to read his review if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right.
Did he put this on Letterboxd?
No, he sent it to us.
Oh,
You
okay.
didn't get it?
Maybe I did.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't look at it.
So
Didn't he just say he enjoyed it?
yeah, this is the joke. You're
Oh, my bad. I stepped on your joke.
Zach said that he thought Dune was good.
Yep, short but sweet.
Short but
We
sweet.
could have led with that, and this podcast would be over by now.
We could have. Who can do their best Zach impression?
I do not have a Zach impression. That's for
You
sure.
can have a
Do you
person.
have one?
I can try.
Oh my gosh.
Here we go. I thought it was good.
Bring Zach back. Bring Zach back. Bring Zach back. Bring Zach back. Bring Zach.
It was a awful impression, Kyle.
Awful.
I mean, it was basically just you saying what he wrote. It was,
Well,
it was not a
in
Zach
his-
impression.
in his tone of voice, though, in his inflection. No, I can't mimic his voice. Like, he's not Humphrey Bogart or Marlon Brando, where he's got something distinct about it. But
Oh, you're saying Zach is not distinct. That's what you're saying?
yeah,
Wow, rude.
he is not a man of distinction.
All right.
But I was trying to best like mimic his vocal inflection at least.
Sure. Work on it.
Work. I've only known him for most of my life. If I don't have it down by now, then there's nothing to work on.
Probably. That's probably true. All right. Let's do final thoughts and a letterbox rating for Dune. I enjoyed my time with it. I finally am intrigued by a version of Dune. I see how there could be a story here, a bigger story that I could latch myself onto. I think it's probably less about the story in this case and far more about the presentation, which I'm fine with when it comes to Denis Villeneuve. If he gives us more of what we saw in this movie and then some, then I'm sure I will be perfectly satisfied with the next one. That being said, when it comes to just like storyline itself, it's kind of stuff we've seen before, and the visuals don't vary too much, although what is there is great. And that's why I gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd.
Very fair. Yeah, I don't have much to disagree with you.
Mhm.
I was waiting for a wow moment. I did not get a wow moment in this movie.
Mhm.
It's maybe because it's only half a movie, and I found that slightly annoying. I know it's not anyone's fault per se. When you're telling half a story, you're gonna give me half a story, but I'm still gonna judge the movie and what I saw in front of me. So yeah, great visuals, pretty good acting, lack of a wow moment. Still 4 stars though.
Yeah. Denis Villeneuve is a master at making digital things feel huge.
Mm-hmm.
He does it often in this movie, and I think maybe they thought that was enough of a wow moment, but it's kind of not when you compare it to like wow moments in Lord of the Rings or some of the other trilogies out there that
Or
like
even Blade Runner 2049.
yeah. But what I was trying to compare it to were like movies that had sequels coming. Like you're watching a movie and you know there's a sequel coming. They still try to give you wow moments in the one that you're currently watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not a television show. It needs to have a beginning and a middle and an end, even if there's a sequel coming. And this movie did not bother doing that.
No.
At all.
No, it looked great, but
yeah,
there wasn't one scene like, oh man, that scene right there
mm-hmm.
didn't happen for me.
Yeah.
maybe the action climax just had some like incredibly large explosions.
Mhm.
Like that was
Yeah.
kind of cool just to see immense fireballs, which I'm like, is that practical or is that an immense CG fireball? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not practical. I can almost guarantee you.
Okay.
They did not blow up something that big.
Or did they blow something that big in miniature and then scale it? I don't know. It looked great.
Yeah. I think most of what we saw, short of the actors, were digital
Yeah.
throughout that movie. But I'll be interested in the special features someday for sure.
Oh, I have a quick question.
Okay.
I noticed halfway through that Jason Momoa shaved his beard,
Mm-hmm.
and one, he's definitely a guy who should keep a beard.
Yeah. He
And
looked like Brandon. What's his name? The guy who played the lead character in Mummy, the Mummy trilogy.
Brendan Fraser.
He looked like Brendan Fraser when he shaved his beard.
Yeah, he looks just different. And why did that character shave the beard? I didn't understand why that had to happen at
Maybe you don't
all.
want to get sand in your beard because wasn't it like after he went and hung out with the sand people,
Maybe that was it, or yeah,
the
or for the
Freons or
mask or
something like
something.
that. What were the names?
Fremen.
Fremen. Right.
Fremen. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like maybe it was after that,
Hmm. Didn't
but
other Fremen have beards though?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember.
All right. I just found it. I thought it was continuity at first.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, did they screw up and forget he had a beard? But they
Maybe
seem
he
to be in
was
multiple scenes. So
maybe he was filming like a Justice League thing and he couldn't shave his beard, and so they just
no. I read that Denis Villeneuve asked him to shave his beard and like was super nervous because Jason Momoa, I think he's known for his beard amongst other
Mhm.
things.
Hmm.
And Momoa's like, I don't have to film Aquaman right now, so I can shave it for you. I need to grow it back in time for Aquaman, whatever 2 or whatever the next one is.
All right. Interesting.
Okay, well, I don't know. It bothered me.
What did you give Dune?
I gave it 4 stars.
4 stars. So a
Yeah.
3.5 and a 4 for Dune, and a it was good from Zach. We're gonna run down our top 10 films of Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve, and yeah, so he has 10 movies. He's made 10. I've seen all 10. Kyle has seen 8.
Mhm.
So he's gonna jump in when I hit number 8. The first 2 happen to be the 2 that he has not seen. So that doesn't mean I don't think you should see them, Kyle. I think you could probably see them if you wanted a full breadth of what Villeneuve has to offer.
Mhm.
There is so his first movie, August 32nd on Earth from 1998, followed up by Maelstrom, my number 9 for
Yes.
him in 2000. So he kind of made those movies and then didn't make anything for 8 years and then made Polytechnique.
Yeah, I read that he was not happy with his first 2 movies.
Right.
So he basically took a break and just like, I need to reevaluate what I'm doing as a filmmaker, as a father, and then came back
Sure.
and made Polytechnique.
Yeah, so both August 32nd on Earth and Maelstrom are just not necessarily, they don't feel like they're from a different director. They're just a different style of what
Mhm.
you come to expect from him for sure. Like there's you can still see some meticulous visuals and planning in those movies, but there's definitely a more lighthearted edge occasionally in those, and that's just not something he does in all the rest of his movies.
No,
I
he
would
goes
say.
a little darker.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's not super dark, it's like just the dialogue. Rarely do characters crack jokes in his movies, even
Mhm.
if there's not dark things going on, which
E
there is a lot of dark stuff going on in his movies.
Even Dune was such a serious movie.
Yeah.
Like, Jason Momoa cracks one joke,
Mhm.
like pokes fun at Timothy Chalamet's character, and that's it. Like there's nothing lighthearted at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a little bit of, they try to give Timothy Chalamet a little bit of charm, like when he's dueling with
Josh
oh,
Brolin's
Josh
character.
Brolin. Yeah, towards the beginning where you're
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, this is a, mentor mentee relationship, and
Hmm.
they're having fun with this, but that's pretty much the only fun to be had in the movie, I would say. But as far as characters having fun on screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, August 32nd on Earth tells the story of a model, a French model, I think, French Canadian, and she doesn't feel like she has a purpose in life, and so she convinces her best friend to impregnate her, and then she plans on having a child. And the friend agrees, but only if they conceive in a desert. And so they travel to the United States to the salt flats and convince a cabbie to drive them out there from the airport, and then the cab the driver of the cab leaves them out in the salt flats. And
Hmm.
it's like a relationship drama with a convoluted premise. Like, I just
Yeah.
presented you that premise and you're just like, why are we telling this story? And
Interesting. Yeah.
that's what I asked while I watched the movie, and by the time it was done, didn't really have a why. It was just like, the why was to present a weird scenario for people to get involved with. And it was fine, but nothing that anybody needs to run and go
Hmm.
see unless you're trying to see all the films of Denis Villeneuve. Maelstrom, my number 9, slightly better. A movie about a woman who gets an abortion and then has a hard time dealing with that. And other things happen in the movie, and it's a little darker than August 23rd. Sorry, August 32nd on 32nd,
Yeah. It's 30-second,
August
which I know
32nd on Earth.
doesn't exist. Yeah.
Right, that just threw me off. Um, but not as dark as his later movies, and you see a little more of like the more intentional filmmaking touch, but still a little lighthearted, which is
Hmm.
strange considering the subject matter. So those are my number 10 and my number 9. What's your number 8?
My number 8 is Enemy from 2013. I was looking at Denis Villeneuve and when I've seen his movies,
Mm-hmm.
and the first time I saw a movie of his was in 2016. Then I watched 4 of his that year. I don't know if that was intentional or not. So I got half of my Denis Villeneuve done in 1 year, and then for the next couple of years, spread them out.
Sure.
And I want to say I like all these movies. Like a number 8 is not a bad movie. It's just my eighth favorite of what I think are 8 good to great to amazing movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Enemy stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Melanie Laurent. Jake Gyllenhaal plays, I guess, kind of like just an everyday guy. I'm not sure what his profession is, but he discovers that there is an actor, also played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who looks exactly the same as him, and tries to track him down and figure out why do I have a twin? Is it a doppelganger? What's going on here? There's other things going on in Enemy. There's a lot of spider imagery. I think there's some subtext about women and relationships going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say it's not his most accessible film because there's a lot of subtext, but it does have one of the best endings in a movie.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember the ending.
I absolutely. He looks in the room and something happens.
It's something happens and it ends, and it surprised me
Mm-hmm.
and creeped the crap out of me, and it's a great ending, and I think it's a good movie. I don't know if it's well, it was Logan's the top 10 movie for Logan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it should be your first Denis Villeneuve movie though. I think we should decide on that at the end of this. What would be a good if you've never seen one of his movies before? What would be a good entry point?
Mm, that's difficult. Depends on who you're talking to, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. That's my number 8.
My number 8 is Prisoners from 2013. So over the last 24 hours, I think I've watched 4 Denis Villeneuve movies.
Oh, man, I take a year. You take 24 hours. That's awesome.
Yeah. Other than Dune, they were all rewatches just because
Okay.
I had only seen them once, and took the opportunity to have a reason to rewatch them. So
Mhm.
this one stars Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal again, Viola Davis, Terrence Howard, Paul Dano, other people, and
David Tashmasian.
uh, that guy as well. I don't know what you just said, but yes.
David Dashmalchian,
The guy from Dune.
the guy from Dune.
Right, sure. Um, so the I agree with you that like this bottom 8 is not it's not like number 8 is a bad movie for sure. Prisoners is definitely not a bad movie. It is a very well-made movie with solid acting performance, a great cast, and steady direction that's telling just an absolutely brutal story, I would say. Like there are no winners in this movie, and even though the um, conclusion could be shaded one direction or another,
Yeah.
it's still no good for anybody, I would say. And Villeneuve tends to have like dark things in his movies, but this is like a whole nother level of dark, I would say, for him. And I think it's one of those movies that if he didn't make it, somebody else would have. I'm glad he did because it's given like a level of seriousness that I think works for it. And I respect the movie, but having seen it twice, probably don't need to put myself through that ever again.
My number 7 is Prisoners. So, yep, I agree with everything you said. It's great movie, acting wise, good story, but very dark.
For sure. Yeah. My number 7 is Polytechnique from 2009. This is the movie he took a break from 2000 to 2009 and then came back with this movie. It's based on a school shooting that took place in Canada, right?
Yeah, 1989.
Right, at a co-ed school, but the shooters at the school shooting only targeted women. that
The
they're shooting
shooter
at.
is just the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
shooter.
and this is a college or a technical school. So,
Right.
right, we're not talking high schoolers or anything like that.
Yep. And it's based on a true story. And the movie just kind of takes you through the shooting, I would say, and also kind of highlights some of the young men who uh, realize this, that he's only going after women, and well, at least one of them tries to fight back. It's been a while since I've seen this.
Yeah, it follows it follows the gunman.
Hmm.
It follows one of the female victims, and it follows a male student
Hmm.
who was in the classroom where a lot of the shooting happens.
Hmm.
And
And is
I got the
spared because he's male.
because he's male, yeah. And I got the impression that that male character was kind of a surrogate for the male students in general. Like the woman, a lot of the women, a lot of the victims, including the main woman, were based on actual victims and people there.
Hmm.
But I got the impression that that male character was just sort of like a surrogate for a lot of the men who felt guilty and about what happened and how they responded or didn't respond. So
Sure.
I don't think he was one specific person.
Yeah, I also think this movie is really well made. It's also dark subject matter,
Mhm.
and you don't really get too much explanation for why what's happening on screen is happening, but that's the case with most school shootings in general. And so, but it's really well made, and you can definitely see the beginnings of what Denis Villeneuve eventually puts on screen.
Mhm.
I think it starts in those first two from the late 90s, early 2000s, but really this is the first one where you're like, oh yeah, easily recognizable as a
Yep.
Villeneuve movie.
Oh yeah. My number 6 is Dune. We just talked about.
I feel like I'm taking all of them, Kyle.
No, it's fine. I got more things to say, so don't worry.
Well, luckily enough, my number 6, also Dune.
Perfect. My number 5 is Polytechnique. I see a
Okay.
trend. Um, what? Yeah, I mean, and just to add on, like this is a hard movie. Like trigger warning, literally. If school violence or mass shootings is upsetting to you, this movie is very upsetting.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it does not shy away from showing a mass shooting happening.
Right. And from what I remember, there's like not a whole lot of setup, right? It's like the movie starts and the school shooting starts type of thing.
Yeah, we spend a little time with the shooter beforehand,
Mhm.
and you kind of get the impression that he's an antisocial incel, like
Mhm.
most shooters.
Mhm.
They kind of fit a mold. But thankfully, the shooting happens, and then it focuses more on the victims and the people there. So the movie doesn't try and explain the shooter or spend too much time on him. It's more trying to tell the story of like, how are the people who survived and who didn't survive this tragic event, how are they handling that in the moment?
Mhm. Yeah. My number 5 is from 2016. It's another one I rewatched today. It's called Arrival. And I really like Arrival. Like, this is another movie where, I mean, most of the visuals are digital, and he does a good job of making things feel huge when in reality it's probably a green screen.
Yeah.
And that's an impressive trick. I also really love the score to Arrival, and this one actually has a little more humor than some of the other ones. Like the Amy Adams character gets a couple zingers in. She tells the kangaroo story and then immediately reveals to Jeremy Renner that it's a lie. You know, that you remember that part in the movie?
I need to rewatch Arrival.
Sure. She's getting pressure from what's his name? Old lazy eye.
Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker. She's getting pressure from Forrest Whitaker, who's like in the military.
Yeah.
He's running the operation to go faster. And she's like, well, the reason why we can't go faster is because of kangaroo. And it's like, when people first came to Australia, they were trying to learn the Aboriginal language, and they thought that the Aborigines were referencing, when they were referencing kangaroos, they were saying the word kangaroo. And so from then on, kangaroos were known as kangaroos. But in reality, kangaroo in Aboriginal language means I don't understand. It doesn't mean kangaroo. And so the Forrest Whitaker character, who's like, all up her butt to go faster, is like, okay, I understand why you're going slow now. And he leaves her alone. And then she immediately turns to Jeremy Renner and he goes, that was a great way to explain that to him. And she goes, yeah, it's a lie. But it proved my point.
Yeah, it got him off her back. And
Right.
Yep.
Anyway, there's a few moments in that movie with just a little bit of levity. And the subject matter itself is less ominous than some of his other movies. And yeah, I think Arrival is a unique alien movie.
Yeah.
Alien, based movie. So my number 5.
My number 4 is Sicario from 2015. This is my first Denis Villeneuve movie.
Okay. This is the one that inspired 3 others in the same year.
Exactly, yes. This is starring Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, Josh Brolin. There's an alum right there we forgot about. And Daniel Kaluuya. And this is, I think, the first movie I saw Daniel Kaluuya in. I remember him being in Black Mirror. He's in the episode where they're riding the exercise bikes for points.
Really?
Dystopian. Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
it's him, and it's one of the daughters from Downton Abbey. I think the youngest one who dies or something like that. Spoiler for Downton Abbey.
Dies
Anyway,
because she wanted to go to Hollywood.
Yeah, dies because she wanted to be a Black Mirror. So, in this movie, Emily Blunt plays an FBI agent who gets kind of caught up in the war on drugs and cartel wars between the U.S.-Mexico border. And he gets mixed in with Josh Brolin, who might work for the CIA. He's kind of a shady character. And it's kind of a movie of seeing a person who is good on the inside and wants to be good and do good get sucked into a world of evil. If you want to see a good person get broken down.
Watch this movie.
Watch Sicario. I mean, which is kind of a theme in Denis Villeneuve movies. Like his movies are kind of dark,
Hmm.
and a lot of time maybe that's why he was drawn to Dune, is because the Oscar Isaac's character is a good, noble person who tries to do the right thing and gets kind of sucked into a world of where things aren't good.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Sicario also has going for it that it's not a political thriller, but it's like a small scale political thriller. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes.
not the presidency we're talking about, but it's like different government agencies playing off each other, how the drug trade works, how the cartels fit into those politics. Um, there's like a little bit of a procedural going on here. And then the moment
Yes.
you get comfortable with the procedural, the personalities upend some of the procedural elements, and it works really well in that way.
Yeah.
My number 4, the aforementioned Enemy, which is a movie I enjoy a lot, and it's another one that I rewatched today. And yeah, the more I watch that movie, the more I think it's about like males not seeing women as people, basically.
Yeah.
and I think it's a good representation of that. And yeah, my number 4.
My number 3 is Incendies, which did Zach and I pick this as or did we pick this as our best movie of the 2010? Or
I
is
don't
it
know.
maybe I can't I feel like this was a movie we talked a lot about when we did that pick the best movie of a decade.
Sure, it's my number 3 as well, though. So
Oh, perfect. Okay, let's talk about it. Um, Incendies is definitely a movie to spoil, so I'm gonna go light. Um, it is about a woman who I can't remember where she's from. Lebanon, possibly.
mm, I don't remember.
I
This
do
is
know.
one that I just rewatched in the last
Yeah,
24 hours as well. Isn't that awful that I can't remember?
it's or maybe it's not a real country. It could be like a fake Middle Eastern country. I don't remember. Anyway,
Uh, go ahead. I think it's
the
just Middle East. I don't think they actually say.
okay. I also realize that Lebanon's not quite Middle East, so please
They
don't write
don't
in.
say.
They don't say. Okay. Um, it's about a mother who, you know, on her after she passes away, she gives a letter to her twin adult children,
Mhm.
um, a daughter and a son. And one letter says, "Find your father," and one letter says, "Find your
Brother.
brother." That's what it is. Yep. Um, and it's about these two siblings going on this journey, going to the country their mother's from, trying to search for the family, search for their history, and they learn a lot of really dark things about their mother and the past. But it's told so well. It works. As dark of a movie it is, it's a movie that is constructed so well, is told so well that
Mhm.
it's a movie you can't forget. I've not forgotten this movie. I've little details obviously forgotten, but it's not a movie where I'm gonna say like, yeah, what was that about? Like I know exactly what this movie is about and how it made me feel, and I think it's great.
Yeah, and it's also the rare Denis Villeneuve movie where he puts the characters through hell, right?
Yep.
And then in the end, even though everything sucks, there's an uplifting moment right at the end.
Yeah. I don't remember that, but I believe you.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it off podcast. I'll remind
Okay.
you.
Okay.
But it's like a glimmer of hope right at the end that he leaves you with, and that is not normally his MO.
Is it more of a glimmer than Prisoners?
Yeah, I mean, prison. Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Prisoners
yeah.
has like the
You're right. You're right.
slightest
There is.
glimmer of hope.
It's more. It's definitely more of a direct glimmer than
Okay.
prisoners.
Okay.
Yes. 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 All right.
Number two for
2?
me.
Yep.
Yep. Previously mentioned Arrival.
Mhm.
This is 2016. This not my favorite movie of 2016. One of my favorite movies of 2016, though. And yeah, like you said, this is a very interesting sci-fi alien movie, but there's also so much more about relationships and like what does your future hold for you and decisions you make based on information you have.
Mhm.
I want to say this is probably his most hopeful of all the movies he's made, even if there is still a sense of melancholy to
Mhm.
the overall story as you learn things throughout the movie. It's also kind of a procedural too about it remind me of Contact in that sense of when we meet aliens, and let's not do it the Michael Bay way. Like, how would we scientifically try and communicate to meet with aliens?
Mhm.
And Arrival fills that same. Uh, I don't know, it kind of takes a similar path to Contact.
Yeah, I mean that it's a movie without an action scene, which is
Hmm.
unusual when it comes to movies with aliens in them, and it treats it like a serious topic, and I think it's better for that, for sure. My number 2, movie you already mentioned, Sicario. I guess we're gonna have the same number 1.
We are.
Love Sicario. I think it's awesome. It's the perfect movie for exactly what it needs to be, for sure.
Hmm.
I can't imagine you telling that same story in any different way than Denis tells it. And I think it's so good that the second one, while not as good, just lives off the goodwill of the first one. Like, because whoever directed the second one basically tried to make a Sicario sequel, not
Hmm.
necessarily like a sequel in the universe that looks different or plays different. He literally tried to make what he thought Denis Villeneuve would make if he
Oh,
made
he
a
tried to make it said the same style too.
yes. He
Interesting.
cribbed the
Okay.
style and stuff like that. And again, it's not as good, but if you're sleeping on part 2, you could absolutely watch part 2 and get something out of it. You won't
Hmm.
think it's better, but you will get something out of it. Um like I almost like the ending of part 2 better than the ending of part 1, which
Really?
is odd. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it was generally ignored because he did not do the sequel, and people were just like, if it's not going to be Denny, then I'm not interested. And so I think it got pushed to the side because of that.
To me, it seemed like when they made a sequel to Jarhead and they
Hmm.
made it like an action war movie,
Hmm.
I was like, "Did you watch the first Jarhead? Do you
Right.
even know like what you're?" I didn't see. Was it Day of Soldado or whatever it's
Hmm.
called?
Yeah.
But to me, it seemed like let's focus on the cartel action and not like the deeper story that Villeneuve was telling the first time around.
And it definitely does that.
Hmm.
Uh, and you're missing kind of, you're missing, what's her name?
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt in the movie. But you've still got Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin in it.
Hmm.
And I think they signed up because they saw something in it. You know
Good.
what I mean? Like I don't think they would have done it. Neither of those guys are paycheck guys, in my opinion. And so I don't think they would have done it if they didn't see something in it. And I think
Yeah.
that's probably the main reason to watch it is because um, everybody making the movie and in the movie don't feel like they're making it to cash in. They're making it because they think it's a good extension of the first movie. So um, and it kind of sets up like more to come at the
Really?
end, not in a Dune kind of way where you're going to be
Okay.
frustrated. Definitely not in a Dune kind of way, but in a way where they could make more and it would be okay, type of thing. And we'll probably never get that because nobody went and saw Day of the Soldado. But
No. No one wants Sicario 3.
right. Well,
Do you
nobody who wants to make money wants Sicario
what's
3.
Sicario 3?
I would take it. I would
You want
absolutely
it,
watch it.
yeah.
Yeah. If they could get the cast back, and even if they got the guy who directed part 2, I'd be in.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Do you think Emily Blunt was ever up for the Lady Jessica role in Dune? Just based that she had been worked with Villeneuve before?
I don't know, but I would totally have been okay with that. Although
Yeah.
Rebecca Ferguson was awesome. So,
Oh, I think either of them could have done a great job in that.
yeah. I mean, Emily Blunt might have been Emily Blunt's getting to the point now where a little distracting when she's in movies.
Like she's too big.
She's like too famous.
Yeah.
I attach her to too many things at this point that I have to like get over what I'm currently watching her in order to accept her in the thing that I'm watching.
When you hear Emily Blunt, what is your like the first role that pops into your head?
Live, die, repeat.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's her role.
Like if I saw her in Dune, I think the first couple of moments of her on screen, I'd be like, she's so good in Live, Die, Repeat. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't pay attention to what's going on. Trying to think if there's an actor where I would say I'd do the same thing. Like there was a time with Tom Hanks where I think I couldn't, like around the time when he was doing the movie where he was the guy that was stuck in the airport.
The Terminal.
The Terminal. Like The Terminal, and there were a couple of movies around that time where it was just, it would take me a while to get past that he's not Tom Hanks on screen, that he's playing somebody. And I think eventually I was able to let that go with him, and I'm sure I'll do that with Emily Blunt. But yeah, I think she might have been distracting in Dune. Whereas Rebecca Ferguson, I like her as an actress, but she doesn't have that movie where I'm like, that's the Rebecca Ferguson movie.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a little bit of was it Rogue Nation, the first one she was in, first Mission Impossible? But that's just because that's the first time I saw her, so I associate with that. But I don't find her distracting, or like I'm watching Rebecca Ferguson per se.
Like Emily Blunt's getting to the point where, with me, I'm sure not everybody agrees. Like you might as well just drop Julia Roberts in there. You know what I mean? Because it's famous. Like Julia Roberts is super famous, and you put her in anything, she's distracting in it because she's Julia Roberts. And Emily Blunt's getting there. Now, as an actress, it's probably a great place to be because you're probably getting paid every time you're on screen.
Yeah.
And you can lead your own movies, and you can be the top dog, which she was in Quiet Place 2. Like she's the main star of Quiet Place 2. And yeah, great place to be, but it means you can't be the third fiddle in a Dune movie.
No, you cannot.
Because you're distracting as the third fiddle. So, what's your number one?
Oh, I believe it's your number one. Blade Runner 2049.
It is my number one. Yes.
Yeah. Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Ana de Armas, who I forgot. I rewatched this a couple like a month ago. Got the 4K. By the way, do you have this on 4K yet?
I do. I have not watched it. It was one of the ones I didn't get to today.
Oh, it looks great. I mean, it looked great in the theater. It looks great on 4K.
Yeah.
And I remember Ana de Armas' character standing out to me on the rewatch, and then seeing her in No Time to Die. I'm like, oh, that's the same woman. So I'm very excited for what she's in the future.
Wait, that was the second. No Time to Die was the second Ana de Armas movie you've seen?
No, Knives Out was the second one I've seen of hers. Yeah. But I like her. She's so much different in Knives Out than she is in No Time to Die, or like she's much more glamorous in No Time to Die or in Blade Runner 2049. That I kind of forgot it was the same actress between all three movies.
Sure.
This movie made me excited for Dune because Villeneuve was able to kind of do a half sequel, half reboots, and it didn't feel like it was crapping all over what it was made 30 years ago, right? Like Blade Runner is a top 100 movie for me. It's great. It's a noir film. It's kind of slow. I'll give people that if you find Blade Runner slow, but there's so much else going on in it. It's a classic sci-fi movie. And the fact that Villeneuve was able to take kind of the story of Blade Runner, he was able to expand that world, build upon it, but still tell it his own story within it. I thought is extremely successful remake of a movie. That kind of, we see a lot of those, and they walk that line really well. Like I said, it didn't make a lot of money, so financially it was not a success, but critically, definitely a success. This movie is Not top 100 for me yet, but it's teetering. I could see it possibly becoming a top 100 down the line.
Yeah, me too. I generally echo everything you said. Uh, I've seen it twice in a movie theater,
Mhm.
2 days apart on
It's worth seeing in the theater
opening
like that.
weekend.
Yeah,
Have
I
not
believe it.
have not seen it since, but I've got the 4K, and one of these days I'm gonna pop it in, and I'll be 4 years on, so hopefully I'll have not remembered everything about it.
Mhm. Good,
Basically,
yeah. And there's some surprises in it.
hmm I gave it fives both times in the same opening weekend, and yeah, love that movie. I remember a lot about it 4 years on, for sure.
So, generally speaking,
hmm
if someone was to come to you, and I know it's person to person, but like on average, if a person was to come to you and say, "I've never seen a Denis Villeneuve movie, where should I start? Like which one?" Or if you want to give them ones, that's fine. Where would you
Sure.
start them?
It would be either Blade Runner 2049 or Sicario for sure.
Hmm.
If I know that they can handle sci-fi, it's Blade Runner 2049. If I know that that's not really their thing, like fantasy or sci-fi, then Sicario is uh, an amazing second choice for that
Yeah.
person. So I'd be comfortable giving those to anybody. I mean, I wouldn't give it to a 10-year-old, but I would give it to an adult, either of them.
I was thinking Sicario or Arrival.
Arrival's good too. I mean, that's
Hmm.
a definite third. I think anybody can watch Arrival and not be offended by it, certainly. I
Yep.
think some people might think it's slow and uneventful, but those types of people shouldn't be watching Denis Villeneuve movies anyway.
If if that person came back to me and they watched Sicario, Arrival, or Blade Runner, and they're like, "I really like that. What should I see next?"
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just gonna go say Ascendies. Just push right into it.
Incendies is tough. That's definitely a movie where I would evaluate
The person.
who I'm talking to.
Hmm.
Because you can watch Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, uh, Arrival, Dune. You can watch those movies and have not seen where Denis Villeneuve can go. The moment you add Prisoners, the moment you add Polytechnique, the moment
Hmm.
you add Enemy to an extent, as far as like the sexuality stuff, uh, definitely the moment you add Incendies. These are movies that like beat you up,
Hmm. Yeah.
and they're just not movies I'll ever recommend to my mom. Doesn't matter
Well,
how much she wants to watch another Denis Villeneuve movie. I'm not recommending them. Just not doing it. So it depends on who's in front of me, for sure.
would you not recommend it to your mom because you don't want her to see it, or you don't want her to be like, James likes this?
I feel like she would not enjoy it,
Okay.
and she trusts me not to put certain
Steer
images
her
in
wrong.
front of her.
Okay, fair.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's other people in my life that trust me for that too, like where they'll be like, "Should I watch this?" And I'm like, "Just be prepared that a kid dies in it." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of those movies a kid dies in them, but um, yeah, they trust me to give them good advice based on what I know they can handle and what they can't.
Yeah, but you can't like trigger warn Incendies without spoiling the entire thing, though.
You could. I mean, you could say Incendies is about I mean,
Careful. Careful.
there if you can't handle depictions of sexual assault, then
There
you
you
should
go.
not see Incendies.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
That is a fair. That's a fair warning before getting into it. Yes.
And it doesn't even happen on screen, but you feel it,
Yeah.
and that's enough.
Yep.
So, yeah, and it's a woman being dragged through hell for the majority of the movie, not in like a horror movie kind of way, in a very realistic period piece type of way. And if you can't handle that, you should not watch Incendies. Now, if you feel like you can, there's a great drama there with great
Hmm.
acting and sympathetic characters who go through hell and come through the other end and make the make the most of it in the end, I would say. Even though you don't really get to see that part of the movie, you assume based on some of the other characters that
Mhm.
they've done well in life despite what happened to them.
Yeah.
I'm really trying not to spoil Incendies.
All right, we should move on from Incendies
It's
then.
a really good movie, but again, one that I'd have to know the person pretty
Yeah.
well before I'd recommend it. Same thing with Prisoners. It's just so dark.
Mhm.
And if you have young children, I don't know why you need to live in that world for 2 hours and 30 minutes or however long that movie is.
Yeah, I watched that when my kid was under a year old, and that probably didn't help. There's a new father. Like, what movies did I watch as a new father? Prisoners, Room.
Yeah. I mean, both of those movies are like, what's a parent's worst nightmare? Basically what happens in those two movies.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to watch them, you should know that it's going to be a depiction of that. And anybody who doesn't give you the heads up on that is being, I don't know. I don't know.
They're purposely trying to mess with you. If they're like, oh yeah, Prisoners, good thriller.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal,
they're being
Hugh
a
Jackman.
jerk if they don't mention
Exactly.
those things
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah. They're trying to prank you or punk. I don't even know what the kids use anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Troll. They're trying to
Troll. You're being trolled if someone
even
recommends that to you
Troll is
without.
probably like 10 years out of date at this point.
I mean, if we have any listeners under the age of 20, I'd be shocked. But I would love to hear from them.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
I have no clue.
We have in the past. I just think they all grew up. This podcast is 6 years old, so pretty sure we had like some 16, 17-year-olds at one point, but I think they've all aged up at this point. Anything else? Like bigger thoughts on Denis Villeneuve? What do you think about the guy? This is a top 10 director for you. I looked at our top 10 directors.
He is a top 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's a top 10 director for me because he has yet to let me down. Like, looking at this list, everything on here is 3.5 stars or higher.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple, no top 100 movies yet, but definitely top 500 movies from this list that are on mine. And yeah, so he excites me. And the fact that so far he is 8 for 8 for me, and I don't see him stopping directing. And I like both his visual style. I think he has an interesting point of view. I like that he likes sci-fi. I'm a sci-fi guy.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he wants to make, he's not making action sci-fi like Arrival, Blade Runner 2049. Those are more, heady sci-fi style movies.
Yeah.
Dune, heady sci-fi. There's obviously action in it, but so I'm glad we finally get a chance to talk about him on the podcast. I'm glad I get to be here for it, and I'm excited for what's next. I'm excited for Dune 2 and what he continues to do.
Yeah, I generally agree. I would say that if you were to ever see his first two, or one of his first two, you still wouldn't be disappointed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you can watch things in context. So you could watch them and get, oh, I see inklings of what's to come in these things. But I don't think you'd be like, wow, how do you make that stinker? You know what I mean? Because they're not stinkers. They're just different style, basically. It's almost like a completely different filmmaker made those. But you can still see here and there a little bit of the weirdness. Maelstrom actually has this weird wrapper of like, there's this butcher, like literally a butcher, a guy who butchers fish. They're not butchers. What do you call fish? People who cut up fish. They're not
fishmonger.
Butchers. Fishmonger. There's a fishmonger that looks like he's on the set of like a 90s 9 Inch Nails video in like a factory setting, and he's skewering, whatever, chopping up giant fish, filleting. That's the term I was looking for. And the fish are the narrators of the movie. So their mouths are moving and they're like telling you the story of the movie while they're being chopped up.
Oh, I've seen this.
You've seen this movie?
No, I've seen that scene.
Sure.
Oh, wait, or no. Did The Sopranos do that scene one
The
time?
Sopranos did a scene with a talking fish that was
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
But this is a totally it's the same idea of a talking fish, but it's a totally different context, I would say.
Okay.
And it's a strange wrapper because the fish are the narrator, so you keep going back to this fishmonger who doesn't say a word, and he's just like cleaning and filleting fish while the fish narrate the story to you. A story that has nothing to do with the fish.
Yeah.
Or the fishmonger. It's strange. I don't know if it's a French Canadian thing that he was just trying to make a weird art house statement with that or what. But anyway, bigger thoughts on Denis Villeneuve. Love what he does. I like the idea that he thinks big. I like the idea that he thinks I think he's an important voice in blockbuster movies because he's not making Marvel movies, right? I love Marvel movies and I'm glad they're making them. I'm glad we're going to continue to get them. And I think they have a place in movie going. But I also think we need people like Denis Villeneuve who are making big blockbusters that have a specific artistic vision attached to them that challenge the notion of enjoying a big blockbuster, like what you can enjoy out of a big blockbuster. And where Marvel films don't try to challenge you in those ways, I like the idea that there's somebody out there that still can get away with challenging you in those ways. And so I feel like Nolan is a guy who maybe sits between Marvel movies and Denis Villeneuve movies, and then on the two ends, you've got the Marvel movies and Denis Villeneuve. So I think his voice is important in the current landscape. Awesome. Well, we did it, Kyle. We didn't even need Zach to be here.
Yeah, who needs him? I mean, his list would be like good, better,
okay,
it's fine.
What? Let's rank the movies for Zach. He's seen 7 of them, right? I'm pretty sure.
He's seen Polytechnique.
Okay, so he's seen 8. Let's
try
to you and I, let's try
Okay.
to predict his list right now.
Okay.
So Zach, if you hadn't made your list, I need you to stop the podcast and make your list. Don't make it based on what we say. All right, here we go.
All right.
I think you tell me if you disagree. His number 8 is going to be Prisoners.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. What do you think his number 7 is going to be?
It might be Polytechnique.
Okay.
Just because as he was watching, he texted me and he said, "Is this just a shooting?"
Okay, so he
I
watched
think,
it, and maybe
I know
didn't
he
have a
watched
high
it.
opinion.
Yeah, I said, "Hey, more happens," but I don't know if that. I don't.
But
know
that's
how
what the
he's
movie's
feeling at that
about.
time.
It's
It is
about a
about
school
shooting. Yep.
shooting. Yeah,
Yep.
it's not about the aftermath. It's about the actual school shooting. Okay, so now we're to number 6. I would guess his number 6 is Dune.
I'm gonna agree with you on Dune. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think his number 5 is?
So here we're getting into either Enemy or Sicario territory because I think he likes Enemy more than he likes it more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Enemy pretty high too, didn't you?
What do you think his top 3 are? Blade Runner, Arrival.
I mean,
Incendies?
I think those are his top 3. Yeah.
Okay, in that order.
Incendies could be above Arrival.
So Blade Runner, Incendies, Arrival.
I think so.
Okay, let's run with that. That
Okay.
leaves us with Enemy in the middle and Sicario in the middle. So which one's higher?
I'm feeling like I'm putting Enemy higher than Sicario.
I would go lower.
You would put Sicario ahead of Enemy.
I don't know. Zach doesn't really talk about Sicario, but he also doesn't really talk about Enemy. But he does light up when somebody talks about Enemy.
Yeah, that's why I put Enemy higher than Sicario.
Okay. I'll go with it. So we're going Blade Runner, number
Mhm.
1, Incendies, Arrival,
Mhm.
Enemy,
Mhm.
Sicario, Dune, Polytechnique, Prisoners.
I like that.
All right. That's what it is. If Zach has anything different, he's wrong, obviously. This is his true top 8.
Zach, you can send us an email at heyguys@cinereelists.com and let us know how close we are.
We might read it on the podcast.
Yeah, maybe you can read it.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this episode 502 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, you can always send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. You can check out the video version of this podcast on YouTube. You can support us on Patreon. You can leave us an Apple Podcast review. You could also follow us on social media at Cinereelists on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. But Instagram's really where it's popping off these days, I would say.
That's all the meats on Instagram.
For sure. And you could also follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can find me on where can you find me?
Letterboxd.
Thank you. You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB. I'm already excited for this week's Denis Villeneuve themed collage for Instagram.
Sure.
That seems to be my new thing right now. It's making collages.
Yeah, it seems to get a decent amount of likes.
I think it's more interesting to look at like a collage of movies you might have known than like me screenshotting the website for the latest movie, which is what I was doing for a while.
Sure. Yep. I could see that definitely. We will be back next week, probably with Marvel's Eternals,
Mm-hmm.
latest Marvel movie. Speaking of Marvel movies, and we'll see you guys there. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.